What is up, everybody? It is Ak here, back with another video. In today's video, we are in Black Morass doing a one pool.
That is right, you heard it first here. Mages and TBC can still do one pools. Let's go.
So Black Morass is an instance over in the Caverns of Time. In order to access this dungeon, you have to do Escape from Durnhold first. Get that quest, finish that, then you can access the Black Morass instance. So there is a little bit of a gate to get in there. It takes about 30 minutes to 45 minutes just to run the dungeon. Do that dungeon, then you can get in here. Why is this dungeon so good? There's a ton of non-elite mobs all throughout the instance before you actually start the meat of the instance. The meat of the instance is actually spawning a bunch of portals, kind of like the Violet Hold, if you guys are familiar with that, and spawning a bunch of portals and then taking out the mobs from those portals and eventually killing the big boss in front of the dark portal. We don't need to worry about any of that, though. We're worried about the mobs that are around the instance. And so last night on my stream, I did Escape from Durnhold, and then I was like, you know what? I want to try Black Morass and see if there's an AOE farm potential. Because I knew there was going to be a bunch of mobs. I knew Paladins had some kind of farming potential here as well, which Paladins will certainly have a good farming potential here. And so I brought over my Mage and just started thinking, let's see how many mobs we could pull. And so I pulled as many mobs as possible. I did not have my Blade of Eternal Darkness, but we were able to kill 86 mobs on the first run, which immediately got me thinking about the amount of gold that we can make and potentially even experience you can make. So before we jump into all those numbers, let's talk about the requirements. I recommend having Blade of Eternal Darkness. It's going to make it immensely easier to do the kill phase. You don't technically need it. As I said before, I use mana pots and things like that to basically have enough mana to take them out slowly. I still leverage Flame Strike with Palm Flame Strike and just try to use clear casting for max range blizzards. However, it's going to take a little bit longer to do the kill phase if you don't have Blade of Eternal Darkness. So I recommend getting Blade of Eternal Darkness. It's a 2% drop rate off of Princess. Highly recommend that. You also want to have skinning. You don't need skinning, but your skinning is going to double the amount of gold that you're going to make from this instance. You want 335 skinning with gloves with a 5 or plus 5 skinning enchant on them. So 335 skinning plus 5 enchant. If you do that, guys, you can be looking at making approximately 200 gold per run. You could do a run in about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how quick you get with the kill phase. That means you could be looking at an easy 500 to 600 gold per hour with this farm. Best part of all of that is leather sells quick. The knothide leather is going to sell really quick. The other good drops you're getting is you're getting the netherweb spider silk from the tarantulas. Those are the spiders. You can't skin the spiders, but you do get the silk. I'm getting on average 10 per run, which those 10 is about another 100 gold roughly, depending on your server. Maybe more, maybe less. And then you also have raw venerables. So just from the venerables themselves, because they're beasts, they're dropping pretty valuable venerables. Those venerables are about 25 gold per run, including the greens that you can just vendor. Or if you want to auction house the greens, you can make even more than that. So you can be looking at about 200 gold per run. If you don't have leather or skinning, then you're probably going to be looking at about, 75 to 100 gold per run on average. So you can make a lot of gold from this farm. In addition to that, you can actually start doing this. I would recommend at level 66. I don't recommend any earlier than that because you're probably going to be getting a lot of resist. However, you can get about 600 experience per mob. And so we're killing 100 mobs on average per run. There's more than that in the instance, but I'm just accounting for some night sabers that you're going to miss just because they're going to be in stealth, or maybe you're going to miss a croc or a spider or something here and there. And so I'm going to average about 100 mobs per run. That means you're going to get about 60 to 70,000 experience per run while leveling up. So if we take that times 4, we're looking at 240 to 280,000 experience per hour, which is on par with slay pens, while you make about 500 to 600 gold per hour as well. So this is going to potentially be a very good farm. Now, as you can see here, we are just running around the entire instance trying to aggro up all the mobs as possible. It's going to take some experimentation to get used to it. I found that a lot of night sabers are tucked in the corners, and so watch out for the corners because they will be stealth. If you get hit from behind, you do have a chance to be knocked off your mount and dazed, and that could potentially cause some issues. If that happens, I recommend just spamming rank 1 blizzard and just trying to take out the mobs immediately wherever you are. Don't try to kite them too far. You could run into some issues. But basically, we run through the entire instance, aggroing up the mobs. You want to kind of make figure 8 style moves. You don't just want to go like straight across, straight down, straight across kind of idea, because you want the stack of mobs behind you to not be stacked up. If they're not stacked up, that means that they grab more mobs automatically and you don't have to go and grab them yourselves. If they're just in one straight line, they're not going to run through as many mobs. And so you kind of want it to be a messy pool. You don't want to get knocked off your mount, but you want it to be a messy in the sense that you want the mobs running all over the place to try to aggro up as many mobs as possible. Once you get to the kill phase, you can stack up all these mobs without any problem at all. So you see here that I'm basically running through the entire dungeon. There's a ton of mobs in the 4 corners, and so make sure you always go to the 4 corners. And then we're going to go to what I refer to as home base. Basically, we want to look for a location where it's flat ground, so we're not going to be worried about, line of sight issues, or we're not going to be worried about, if we need to go for a Nova, some line of sight issues with the Nova or hill issues with Novas that could cause us to run into more issues than we could anticipate. And so we want to look for a kind of leveled out ground. We also want to look for a big area so that we can maintain our blizzards for a long time. The kill strategy is going to be predicated upon Flame Strike and Blizzard, and we're trying to pump out damage with Flame Strike. Because it's 100 mobs, our Blizzard's not doing too much damage. If you get a clear cast, definitely still use Blizzard because you can pump out a decent bit of damage. But if you don't have clear cast, you don't want to be using max rank Blizzard, else you're going to go pretty quickly. Also recommend, if you are an engineer, picking up Dense Dynamite with Blade of Eternal Darkness. That is going to also give you mana back. Just make sure when you throw the Dense Dynamite and actually have the throwing animation, you're facing towards the mobs. If you aren't facing towards the mobs, whenever you do a spell that could proc Blade of Eternal Darkness, it will not proc Blade of Eternal Darkness. So every single time we go for a Flame Strike, every single time we go for a grenade, we need to be facing towards the mobs so we can get as much mana back as possible. So now it looks like we've run through the whole instance. We've aggroed up all the mobs. And so now I'm going to go over to the kill phase. Watch out here for stealth mobs behind you. So I recommend turning and facing the mobs while you're kind of just waiting for them to stack up. Because there could be a Night Saber that's, stray and still in stealth running at you and he could knock you off your mount. So face the mobs, turn around. So we turn around here. We're just waiting for the mobs to come towards us. We're going to pick up this last croc and then we're going to go around in circles. Now what we try to do here is we try to do kind of like a stutter step. So we're going to run a bit, stop. Run a bit, stop, run a bit, stop. And what's happening with that is that the mobs are recalculating our position and they're basically forcing themselves to compact on each other as much as possible. So there we stop, run a little bit, and then we're gonna keep on running here and we're just gonna keep on stopping. You can see that the mobs are stacking up pretty tightly. Now, one big thing is that before we were able to just jump off our Mount Nova, don't do that. You're going to run into some issues if you try to do that. Some mobs are just going to go all over the place. So what we actually have to do is we have to open up with a Blizzard, rank 1 Blizzard, to get the mobs to be relatively stacked, and then we can start going into the kill phase. The biggest thing here is just keeping the mobs controlled at all times, because if they start getting out of control, it's not going to be a good time. So here I open up the rank 1 Blizzard, and just trying to keep them slowed. I'm going to drop a Flame Strike on them and then drop an immediate rank 1 Blizzard. Whenever we drop the rank 1 Blizzard, we want to blink to a location that is perpendicular to where the mobs are. Now, obviously that wasn't perfectly perpendicular, but the idea there, guys, is that if we blink to a location that's perpendicular, the mobs will then have to run back through the Flame Strike. So we want to maximize the amount of time that they're actually in Flame Strike taking damage. So here I'm going to step away, I get a clear cast, and so whenever I get a clear cast, I'm going to use max rank Blizzard. So I'm going to step away a little bit, max rank Blizzard. I would have gone for a Flame Strike there if I did not get that Blizzard, but obviously if you have the clear cast, you got to use it. And so we use it on the max rank Blizzard. Now we're going to pop Icy Veins and then Flame Strike. Make sure we face towards the mob, rank 1 Blizzard, and then again, blink perpendicularly. Now you can see that they're running back through the Flame Strike a little bit, so we're getting some extra ticks. Slow them again, and then we're going to go for another Flame Strike. You want to make sure that you're leveraging your Icy Veins to pump out as much damage as possible. If you have the ZG set and you can, have shorter cast on Flame Strikes, that's fantastic. If you have the Invoker set, since we can get the Invoker set now, that's also fantastic because then you can get out faster Flame Strikes. But since I don't have those, I just have 5-piece T2. I'm just trying to use Icy Veins to pump out the Flame Strikes as much as I can. Once you have that Invoker set though, and especially if you have the ZG set as well, you're going to be able to pump out Flame Strikes so quickly that it's basically like you have Icy Veins permanently, and you'll be able to take out these mobs pretty darn quickly. Actually, you can see that we're only 9 minutes in, and so the bulk of the pool is actually just this kill phase. But this is the idea in the kill phase, that you're supposed to just basically kite them around. I go in for some Novas here just so I can go for some extra Flame Strikes. This is risky, I would say, but you can do it if you want. Just I recommend blinking away and blizzarding. If any of them resist though, obviously we have to go right back into Blizzard. You don't have to do that strategy. It is going to be a little bit riskier to do. Obviously you can run into situations like this where they separate. If this happens though, you just want to keep on using rank 1 Blizzard for 1 tick just to stack with the mobs, blink away, and then rank 1 Blizzard. You always want to blink perpendicularly because that just causes the mobs to stack. Not only does it cause them to run through Flame Strikes more if you have the mobs in Flame Strikes, but you're just causing the mobs to stack, and you want to run in a circle so that they stack with each other. Here they split into 2 separate packs. This is getting kind of scuffed right here, so I'm going to slow down as many mobs as possible, blink perpendicularly over to the side, and then the mobs kind of restack on each other, and I'm able to get them back in a group. Palm Flame Strike just to pump out some damage, and then Blizzard right on top of that just to slow them. Here I have one straggling Tarantula in the front. And so what I want to do here actually is I just want to Nova this guy and then step forward and then just let the rest of the mobs catch up. And so if you just have one mob in the front, it's not like 10 mobs where potentially they're going to resist your Blizzard and whatnot. Just Nova that front mob and then Blizzard on top of that front mob to slow it down. Repeat this over and over. I recommend using the safe spot. The location of the safe spot, guys, or not safe spot, but like the home base basically to think of, is right to the left of Medivh. I'm pretty sure this is Medivh. Right there casting the summon. So it's this location right here. It's a wide kind of landmass where it's pretty flat. You can also use Flame Strike Cone of Cold, so that's actually what I've been doing a lot of the times too to speed up the runs. Just be careful when you have this many mobs. There's a really good chance you're going to get some resists. In the essence of time, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the rest of the run just so you guys can see it. It's basically the same thing over and over, trying to get these mobs as stacked as possible and take them out. It does get a little sloppy here and there, and so you guys can see how to recover from those, but it isn't too bad with a little bit of practice. Maybe you just start off with a little bit less mobs and just get practice with killing them and then make the pools a little bit larger. You can also break this up into multiple different pools. As I said before, I've been Flame Strike shattering combo doing the mobs instead, and the best way that I found to do that is actually to do it in 2 pools rather than 3. Now the benefit of this is that you have a little bit more time to loot for skinning. You should be able to skin all of them as you'll see in this video, but it does give you a little bit extra time if you need it to basically skin as many mobs as you can and loot all the mobs in time. And it also then allows you to break it up into 2 separate pools so that you can do a little bit more damage to the mobs with the AoE cap and you aren't worried about trying to kill all the mobs at once. That being said, doing it as a 1 pool is pretty darn fun. So the reason why we do this, guys, is that at the end of the kill, once they're all dead, we are able to loot them and then we're able to skin them. We're able to get a ton of leather. Now, leather is being farmed immensely right now because people are leveling up. And so it's actually pretty cheap on the auction house. Personally, I expect that to actually go up over time as people stop leveling up their tunes and they focus on running dungeons and gearing, etc. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see leather go up in price, but right now it's about 1 gold a pop. And so you can see here we're getting a good amount of leather and we're also getting a lot of netherweb spider silk. My recommendation for how to do this looting is to not go through and loot all the mobs, but rather loot and skin them in patches. If you go through and you loot all the mobs are going to despawn faster. Where if you do it in little patches like we are right now, you're going to be able to leave the loot on the mob, which is going to make it so that they don't despawn as fast while you do one section and then move over to the next section, and you should be able to get through all of the mobs. But you can see the loot coming across. We're getting a ton of these fangs and things that we can sell just as, venerables. And then we're also getting a ton of knothide leather and a ton of silk. I actually didn't get any greens this run, which is really weird. Typically I get anywhere between 2 and 4 per run, so typically you're going to have some greens on top of that, and then you also can get lock boxes and all the standard drops as well. But overall, guys, I'm looking at this as a potential 500 600 gold per hour farm right now. We're going to see what the price is, how they move in the future. Definitely recommend having skinning though to try to make as much gold as possible with this run, but it can also be used as a good way to level up. So as far as talents and gear are concerned, guys, here are my talents that I'm using. Basically the idea here is to try to have maximum mana regen, also a presence of mind for the palm flame strikes while also keeping up all of your blizzards. So we want to go into a bunch of blizzard talents to try to make sure that we're controlling the mobs as much as we possibly can and pumping out a good amount of damage as well when we get those clear castings. I'll have the spec linked down below in the description, so you guys can check it out there if you guys would like. As far as the gear, I would recommend, T2. If you have T2, it's going to be really beneficial just to try to keep the mob stacked. Outside of that, you can have the Incanter set and you can have the Illusionist set from ZG. Those would be fantastic, but you don't need any of that gear. The gear that I would recommend 100% having is the Blade of Eternal Darkness. It's going to make it so that you can do the kill phase without worrying about running out of mana. Otherwise, you're probably going to need a lot of mana pots, mana rubies, mana gems, etc. With the Blade of Eternal Darkness, you 100% can do this in greens, though. The T2 is just going to help you guys kind of keep them stacked, but you could definitely keep them stacked without it because the mobs won't be resisting you much, and so you'll be able to keep them stacked with batching.